Welcome to Jones and for Sports, where we make sports better.
What is good, y'all? It is your boy Jones, and welcome to another great episode of Locker Room Sunday. As always, joined with my host Luke. How are you feeling this time coming around?
Oh, you should know exactly how the fuck I feel.
Oh man, this is going to be a very good episode. Great start to the episode, because as you know, Wildcard Weekend was this past weekend, and for me personally, it wasn't that exciting to watch besides the last game, which was your Steelers game. But other than that, the other games didn't really excite me that much. But obviously, we'll get into that. As always, want to thank our supporters, our Patreon members, our Instagram and Twitter, Facebook followers for always commenting and supporting us. So appreciate you guys. But let's get into it. You guys already heard my little take on the Steelers-Browns game, but there's no better person to hear from than the Steeler fan, my host, Luke. Take the floor, my man.
Jesus fucking Christ! I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of a heads up before we get into this. Every once in a while, we do a show called the Bleacher Creatures Podcast. We're gonna venture into that territory, and for anyone on our channel, of our subscribers and our loyal viewers, that know what happens on that show, then you'll be. This is right up your fucking alley. Couple things before we get into the X's and O's of what the fuck went wrong with that game. Number one, I should have realized we were fucked the second Juju opened his mouth.
Yep.
That's my mistake. Because the last time some dumb shit like that happened was when Antonio Brown recorded the locker room before we had to go play the fucking Patriots, and we got our ass kicked there too.
Yep.
So that was on me for not seeing the imminent death written on the fucking wall. Number two, we have known all year that we can't run the ball for shit. That's a known fact. It is what it is. You can't compete with most teams in the NFL, even bad ones. If you can't run for at least 85 yards a game consistently, we clearly can't run. That has to be addressed in free agency. That episode's coming in a couple weeks after the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Now to what happened in the actual fucking game. The first fumble was entirely on Pouncey, which for a Hall of Famer, you don't see that shit very often.
No.
When you do, it's usually in weeks 1, 2, or 3.
Yep.
However, the Browns have a decent D-line, and maybe he just got a little fucking squirrely. I don't know what happened. That is what it is. My bigger problem was that only one of 2 people wearing black and yellow went for that ball.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them missed. Bad.
Bad.
The other one stood there, watched the whole fucking thing happen.
Yep.
A la Cam Newton back in Super Bowl 50, who I dragged through the mud when he decided to not dive on that fumble in that game.
Yep.
I understand that was the Super Bowl. This is the Super Wild Card. It doesn't matter. I don't give a shit if it's week 6 or week 2 of the preseason. You dive on a fumble.
Yep.
I don't care that your elbow, Ben, is repaired surgically. I don't give a fuck because you've been throwing 60 times a game because our O coordinators basically put the entire weight of the offense on your right elbow.
Yep.
But he's been in the league too long. for that type of bullshit to happen. Outside from that, the receivers before halftime looked like the 1-4 stretch receivers, where the drops, specifically Ebron, and Ben was not throwing. He was throwing a lot of high balls. I will not fault a receiver for going up for a high throw and it goes off his fingertips. That's on the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
But what I expect out of a pro who's been a starter since 2003, throw accurate balls, especially when they're between zones.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest problem in this game, believe it or not, was not the turnovers. My biggest problem was the defense. Defense looked – the only person that always looks ready to come and play on our defense is two people. One is the defensive player of the year, because T.J. Watt will never take a game off.
Right.
The other one was Mike Hilton,
Mm-hmm.
who, if we don't re-sign, I will be very angry, because I think he's actually more important to our defense than T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward.
Right.
Again, the defense looked fucking lazy. It looked everyone who took snaps on defense, aside from Watt and Hilton, and maybe Minka a little bit, Edmonds had the worst game of the season for him. Noticeably bad. I don't think Joe Hayden played in that game. I don't remember seeing him because I think he couldn't come off the COVID list in time. That didn't help. Steven Nelson, we know is Steven Nelson. He's a number 2 corner. But he can't shoulder the fucking load of a number 1. Even without Beckham. And the amount of fucking times I saw Jarvis Landry in the slot lined up against a linebacker, I wanted to punch the TV.
Yeah, that's a nightmare.
So, who do I blame the game on? 2 of the 4 turnovers were on Ben. One's on Pouncey. Whatever. The defense played like shit, and the game plan was a horrendous game plan by Keith Butler and Mike Tomlin.
Mm-hmm.
So who takes the blame? I'm not putting it on Tomlin. I won't put it on Tomlin.
All right.
It's on the players. Just because your young receiver says something fucking stupid doesn't mean that you have to allow yourself to be playing like, how can I phrase this? If he does something dumb, you should be inclined to play harder to make him not look like a fucking moron.
Exactly.
But instead, you allowed Manifest Destiny to manifest, and now we're out of the fucking playoffs. So, now granted, were we winning a Super Bowl? I'll be the first person to tell you, fuck no, we were not winning a Super Bowl.
Right.
But the last time Cleveland came to our house, we beat them handedly. The week before in their building, we lost by 2 with Mason Rudolph under center.
Mm-hmm.
I get the turnovers, but could you imagine if they had Denzel Ward, Odell Beckham, most of their good players, fucking who's Batonio was out in that game? What more do you need to run away with a game or at least win the fucking thing? What's the excuse? Aside from gifting them 28 points, what's the excuse? What the fuck?
Whew.
So now hold on, we're not done yet.
Whew.
People are curious as to why after the game Ben was crying. I know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Pouncey told Ben that this is probably his last game.
Right.
Pouncey's been a starter since we drafted him in 2010. He should be, at worst, second ballot Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. that's your guy. That's been your guy for so long that the thought of playing without, losing a brother. This is the same thing that happened when Heath Miller retired. You lose a brother, guy you have put your faith in for how many years? That shit sucks. But you know what else sucks? I'm gonna come straight out and say it. This is probably the beginning of I'm gonna call it a rebuild, retool, whatever word you want to use, because we are so fucked with salary cap. We don't expect a Super Bowl anytime soon. You always root for the Super Bowl. You always expect, to make the playoffs. Look introspectively here. We're gonna lose Pouncey, Villanueva, almost definitely Bud Dupree, and probably Hilton. Plus a couple other role guys. The only guys we have left are Minka and TJ, and they have 1 year left each. And if we don't keep both of them, we're fucked.
Yeah, that's definitely tough. And
right, I don't care. And we're going to probably lose Juju, which at this point we can't afford him. We can't afford anybody. So if Juju has to go, he'll definitely get signed somewhere. But I don't see a way to keep him.
Right.
But the way we draft receivers, we'll get a replacement for him in 3 seconds. I'm not worried about that.
It looks like you guys already have your replacements.
Well, Claypool, I don't think is ready to be a number one.
No.
Claypool is a how can I phrase this? Claypool is our Robbie Anderson. He runs the deep shit.
Right.
Juju and Deontay run the intermediate short shit.
Right.
And Eric Ebron, who I'm renaming Feet because he doesn't have hands. But if Eric Ebron can figure out how to catch, I'd put more faith in him.
I hear you on that, and everything you said was right on point. There's two things I got to say about that loss. One, well, I'll say this. I know I went off on Big Ben, Claypool, and Juju about pouting on sitting on the bench. Big Ben, I'll give you a pass because what you just said, and plus retirement is up in the air as well. So he might have.
Chance we lose Ben. That's a good point because we can't afford anybody, and we could sure as shit use the $40 million in cap space for the next 2 years that he's taking up.
Exactly. And so
you already know Ben has said multiple times he's not playing anywhere else. So if we don't take him, he's gone.
He's done. Absolutely.
He's not Brady. There's not a lot of suitors for a 38-year-old who maybe has one good year left in him.
Right.
We saw it with the Colts, but Ben would never go play for the fucking Colts.
No.
If we could ever find a diehard Charger fan, which I know those are like unicorns.
Right.
But if we could ever find one, if I were to ask them, did it piss you off to see Rivers in a Colt uniform? They'd probably say yeah.
Yeah.
At least Ben would never do that to Steeler fans. He's said that openly, like more than a year ago.
Yeah, no question. I think if, like you said, he's not going to go anywhere else. So, I think there was a lot on his mind at that moment, knowing that he was part to blame. Like you said, the players were part to blame for that loss, and having 4 turnovers. Now, that hurt, especially possibly being your last playoff game, depending on what happens next year and things like that. But for Claypool and Juju, you two motherfuckers, whoo, man, y'all have some mouths on you, but y'all just don't back it up.
It's funny. I think we never saw any of this. Like Juju, I get it. He's been doing this. Juju comes from the Antonio Brown school of wide receiver.
Yes.
Claypool, I've never saw any of this at Notre Dame.
Right.
There was no inkling of him being the mouthy type.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on the opposite side of that, I never hear a fucking word from Washington or Johnson.
Exactly.
Even Ebron. And Ebron at least is a vet.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. You don't hear anything from those guys, and those guys are balling as well. So I don't know if Juju is rubbing off on Claypool, or is it just the Antonio Brown effect?
Well, Juju,
I don't know.
Juju's the senior man in the receiver room. He's setting the examples for Claypool, Washington, Johnson, Ray McLeod.
Exactly.
And listen, Juju, again, if his biggest flaw is he shoots his mouth off, I can work with that. But pick your spots. You want to go out and say we're going to kick the shit out of the Jaguars week 13? Sure, because we did that. But this is the playoffs. Don't shut up. Shut up and play.
Exactly. One thing we do know, as far as those people that have opened their big ass mouths, and as far as playoffs and games this year or this past few weeks, they're 0-3. Let's start off with Dabo Sweeney. He opened his mouth. He's home. Chase Young opened his mouth about Brady. He's home.
Okay, hold on. First off, I knew when I picked Washington I was probably going to be wrong. And if I was.
Right.
But can we at least give a tip of the cap to Taylor Heineke?
Oh, man. Hell yeah. He was balling.
Fucker. I tell you right now, if he could play like that 75% of the time, tell Ben to retire, sign his ass.
Yeah, he can definitely find him a spot on an NFL team, possibly even a starting team, because, man, he was looking good out there. He kept it close. He kept them close, and, obviously they just didn't have enough to stay with the Bucs, but
yeah.
that was a hell of a performance by him.
That game was actually probably the most entertaining game of the week.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I get the primetime slot.
Right.
I mean, aside from Heineke playing his ass off, can we just admit that Washington is like one complimentary receiver from being like a legitimate 10-6, 11-5 team?
Absolutely. Especially with that defense. All you need is a decent offense to complement that good defense, and you'll be a good team.
Yeah.
You'll be a good team. So
Washington is in a better situation right now in terms of overall team. The only three better than them, and I say better equipped, Green Bay, New Orleans, and Tampa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I hate to admit that I was right about this, but I remember before the season started, way before the season started, when Washington signed John Rivera, I said I was worried about Washington in a few years, that how good they could be because of him, and they're already showing how good they can be.
They are that Washington team is a far better than their record type of team.
Exactly, absolutely, 100%. So
once they beat Pittsburgh, they started rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they started really showing their true potential, and it's going to be scary if they can add some pieces on that offense and get better on that defense than they already are, which they will because they're young. That's going to be a tough team to beat, and it sucks that it has to be in my division. But since we're already talking,
speaking of your division, though, I'm happy to pull this up. I think it's fair to say with Cleveland winning a playoff game, Buffalo winning a playoff game, I think we can add a new team to the NFL dumpster fire.
Okay.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely.
What I will tell you, I didn't think that Luria was going to have the balls to fire Peterson.
Really? I figured after that last game, there was no way they would try to keep him.
You won a Super Bowl. If I'm the owner of a 3-13 fucking football team, you bet your ass I'm more invested in the draft pick than fucking with Washington.
Yeah.
So if I'm Luria, I would be all for that. My problem is Carson Wentz really worth all this drama and bullshit? The hit on his salary cap says sure, but not to play on the field.
No.
You found a diamond in the rough that you caught a lot of shit for when you took him. Fucking play him.
Right. No, I think that's exactly why. Well, partially because of what he did that last game is why he got booted out of there. But it really depends on what the general manager of Philadelphia was thinking as far as when Wentz said he wanted to go somewhere. He wanted to leave. At that moment, what did they think? All right, well, it's either Wentz or Doug Peterson. So
I would have tried shopping his contract. I'll be honest with you.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Given how fucked that team is in terms of overall talent, they're not Houston. They're not Detroit. Like, they're better on paper than those teams. You can get that a coach can fix a culture, but you need players to fix your record.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Peterson's won him a Super Bowl. But I had to remind me and my buddy were talking about this the other day. I said Doug Peterson won them a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. Wentz was never going to be the guy under Peterson's system, so there was no way they were going to fucking coexist. No shot.
True. I mean, from that moment on, it was definitely hurt.
But Wentz blew his ACL. He couldn't play in the Super Bowl. So we can say the what if game all we want. But it's not like Nick Foles was the hot hand. There was none of that shit. It was him or nobody.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Now, what I will say, it seems that the Jets are interested in Peterson because of their GM, Joe Douglas's relationship with Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also heard that they did not let Robert Saleh, the Niners D coordinator, leave the building.
Right.
So I'm very curious to see what actually transpires because, of course, Peterson got fired while the Jets were interviewing Robert Saleh.
Right.
So
it's going to be very
we mentioned that on the last episode, like the coaching openings.
Right.
So it seemed appropriate to throw that in there.
Right, exactly. So,
but you being a Cowboy fan, you also have a new D coordinator I hate to hire.
I do too, because I'm one of those what have you done lately for me kind of guys. So,
I mean, granted, he did build the most dominant defense we'd seen since what, the 02 Bucks?
Right, but that he did do that, but he had the team to do it. He had they were young. They weren't beaten up. They were on the field. They were available.
Yep.
The Cowboys don't have that. He doesn't have that to work with.
Yeah.
Yes, a couple years ago, they looked like that team to work with, but not now. And it just seems like
the only promising thing that Dan Quinn showed – oh, no, this wasn't even Dan Quinn. But Dan Quinn's assembly of a defense showed you was that they could almost beat Kansas City when someone else was calling plays.
Yep. I don't love the hire. I think it's okay, but I don't love it. I'm for me, this is I'm starting to feel like my team is turning into the New York Mets, where we hire a bunch of has-beens and then see what happens.
But the Mets are actually doing things that are good for the team.
Now they are.
Right.
Now they are. But before they were doing what was my always complaint with the Mets was they just kept hiring guys that used to be all-stars, but now they're trash. I mean, now the Cowboys seem to be doing that with their coaching staff. Mike McCarthy, great coach, offensive mind, but he also had Aaron Rodgers when he was
in his prime.
at his highest. Exactly. So,
Yeah.
Jerry Jones, you got to figure this out. You got to fucking figure this out because now watching the Buffalo Bills now finally get a playoff win. The Cleveland Browns finally get a playoff win. Even the Buccaneers, who've been trashed for forever, are finally back in the playoffs, got a playoff win, and now they're doing something. We are the fucking Cowboys. As much as people hate us, we are still one of the top teams in the world. We got to not just be noticed about just all the bullshit. We got to be noticed about winning. We got to build a winning culture, and I don't believe that Dan Quinn is going to help build that winning culture. So that's where my beef is when it comes to that.
Back to the playoff recaps.
Mm-hmm.
On the Sunday slate, we had the Steelers with a late game. The Nickelodeon game.
Bears Saints.
That game sucked, by the way, which I
did.
Called. But any idiot could have known that was going to be a shit game. I need Nickelodeon to do more of this. Pat McAfee said it the best. He said, as someone with ADD, that was the most visually pleasing game I've ever watched on television.
Yeah,
Couldn't
it was.
be more spot on.
Yeah, that definitely was.
On. Now, granted, Nate Burleson you could just tell he was not in his element because he's used to dealing with like Peter Schrager, professionals.
Right.
Nickelodeon people are not fucking broadcasters.
No.
But in terms of the animations, in terms of all the putting SpongeBob between the goalposts for a field goal, I loved all of it.
Yeah, that was dope.
And honestly, I think the NFL deserves a bit of credit. Because if I'm a sport, not like hockey, I think it can capture the youth just because of how fast it is.
Mm-hmm.
Baseball needs to follow that model. How can I attract kids to watch my game? They don't market the right players for shit.
Absolutely.
So the on-field. Like, I look at a baseball field. I see 2 foul poles. You can't fucking have the same first down marker shit going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm just saying, there's a lot of things that could be done here. Even fucking soccer.
Yep.
MLS in this country, you could pull that off. There's ways to do it. But kudos to the NFL for even entertaining the idea that Nickelodeon would broadcast a game. And honestly, the only thing that I wish it would have had was the Nance Romo call on top of it.
Boom. Yeah, that would have been even better.
But you would have turned off all the kids.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not going to broadcast a game on a kid's channel and then give them the fucking human NyQuil that to a kid is Jim Nance and Romo.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, yeah, you're absolutely right. That was pretty cool, and they should definitely do more of that.
The game sucked, though.
Yeah, the game sucked. And that was obviously the Saints and Bears game.
The Ravens-Titan game, the 1 o'clock, had a bit of intrigue. My father was watching that game with me for most of that game.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a football guy, so he was unfamiliar with what Lamar can do when he's doing Lamar things.
Oh, so this was a nice game for him to watch.
Yeah, but he's like, how come they can't tackle him? I'm like, because he's a running back. This is what he does. He just takes off and goes. If his only 2 targets are covered, he just runs.
Yep.
But, I mean, you want to talk about the Steeler players putting up a shit show? Where the fuck was Derrick Henry in that game?
They shut him down.
I get it. It's Baltimore. And if any team can always shut down the running game, it's Baltimore. But 30 fucking yards?
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on.
Yeah, they definitely, and I think, and you clearly seen it on the field that Derrick Henry was pissed off,
Oh,
and
yeah. Henry looked embarrassed, frustrated, just bad.
and it was just bad play calling because we know that the Titans, one of their bread and butters is play action.
Yep.
But you can't run play action without running the ball first.
Yeah.
They were running play action without even running the ball. And I was trying to figure out, how are you going to run play action without at least giving him the ball first? Let them see, even though they know what he can do, watch him do it to you first, and then you play action. It's more believable when you actually see it than you just faking it all the time.
Now,
and that's what I saw all game.
So you're correct. You're 100% correct. The other thing I saw, and I think you must have seen it too, was I saw, like, every once in a while, you run outside the tackles. I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
Everything was dive.
Yep.
I didn't see one. There was no zone. Like,
absolutely right.
As soon as you pull a guard every once in a while, it doesn't mean that it's a fucking, that it's still not a dive.
Right. Exactly. They have ISO plays where they pull guards and shit.
Right. In case in point, if you're going to run I form, I get it. Dive and ISO are great out of the I form, but so is toss.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's the most simple Madden bullshit explanation you could ever fucking put on a podcast, but Jesus fucking Christ. Get outside the numbers.
Yeah, they didn't use
the momentum.
They didn't use him right way at all.
Can we also admit that Johnnu Smith is the most underutilized, good, talented tight end in the NFL?
Mm-hmm.
Where the fuck did he go? I had him in fantasy like the first 3-4 weeks. Then I think he got hurt and I cut him. But where did he go? Then why did they stop throwing? If I'm him, I'm pissed. I'm like, what the fuck?
Right, exactly.
They throw to Ferkser more than him.
Yep. I don't know.
Maybe that's some of the racist Patriot shit coming in, that's stuck in Vrabel's head.
Yep.
Because there's no better system for white people than the Patriot system.
Exactly. The last thing I got to say about that was that last play that not the last play, but the play that Lamar Jackson had where I think it was 48-yard zigzag touchdown.
Yeah.
He is by far the only quarterback in NFL history that can probably make that play. Even Michael Vick himself admitted that he probably would have got tagged at that point because he doesn't have that speed that Michael Vick had a burst.
Yeah.
But Lamar Jackson,
running back,
he gets faster as he's going.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you saw in that play. It was just like, how the fuck is he getting faster when he's 40 yards down the field already?
Who was it that said that Lamar maintains his speed even when he's juking?
Yeah, I forgot who said it. I heard that same thing, though.
But, again, as much as I shit on Lamar, it's also abundantly obvious that his best asset is his legs, and he's very good with running. There's no arguing that. You can't argue that.
You can't.
But if I could make him, let's say, 3/4 of the fucking gunslinger that Kyler Murray is.
Oh.
Because I'm still taking Kyler Murray, because Kyler Murray is no slouch when he's outside the pocket and running either.
What?
But if you can give me – Lamar does not have passer sense, which is why the new nickname for the Ravens offense is the Wildcat, because it's a running back handling the snap.
Good point.
Because, let's be real. Did Lamar make some throws in that game? Yes. You know who else I've seen make throws this year? Jarvis Landry, Jason Crowder. I've seen Antoine Randall throw a dot to Hines Ward in a Super Bowl. And I've seen the Philly special.
Yes, very true.
So, again, just because you can throw, and we saw that guy who started for the Broncos against New Orleans.
Oh, I forgot who.
That kid ain't a fucking – if you play quarterback at Kentucky, that doesn't mean anything.
Johnson for sports. We can make sports better.